Okay, so students, welcome back. Today we have our great pleasure to have Julia and our special guest from the city of the Gilbert. So I want to just ask Julia to introduce this project, and I do show some photo animation with you. So I will ask our other undergrad students to continue the conversation. I sent you the early morning email. So the schedule is for the first 10 to 15 minutes. We have a good introduction on this project, for the Gilbert of the city solid waste management, and then we will follow by about 30 minutes of our student presentation. And I know I have a few graduate students will be attending, but unfortunately they're also very busy, so I will serve as a backup to help them. But yeah, here we go. Yeah.
Thank you, Simon. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Project Cities Town of Gilbert end of semester showcase with this transportation engineering course. Today we have two special guests, and they'll be embarrassed to introduce them, but Yao Pham from the Town of Gilbert, who's the Public Works Director, as well as Paul Montez, who's the Solid Waste and Recycling Services Manager. We also have Ann Richmond with us today, who's the Sustainable Cities Network Director, and then Allison Almond, who's our Program Coordinator. Go to the next. So we've been working with the Town of Gilbert. This is our first semester working with them. And in case you weren't here on the first day, I introduced Project Cities. Really, the goal of the program is to connect all of the research, resources, and innovation at the university with the local communities in which the university is situated. The Town of Gilbert is a town that is southeast of here, maybe like, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes away, depending on where you're going. They're a quickly growing community, majority housing kind of zoned right now, but they're doing a lot of work or starting to do a lot of work in their public works department, focusing on sustainability. We have another class project with them focused on waste, and then this one is focused on optimizing their solid waste fleet.
You can let me, I can otherwise for you. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, me?
Okay, let me go forward. Yeah, so our original research topic, just as our civil engineering class here, we are a little bit narrowly defined as fleet management. How many trucks do we have? What type of trucks should we have? And then we try to optimize the different routes. And then along this way, we learn many things. So now I want to just show you some nice pictures. I might need to ask either Joey to come here, try to tell me what do you learn during that field study. Okay. So let me just quickly go my slide here. So students, if you are interested in what we learn in the field trip, I would like to always encourage you to go to the discussion. In the discussion board, the number one discussion is our project. And then I would like to go to this share folder. And I will just do the presentation mode. Maybe Joey, you can try to tell our students what you learn from the future.
Yeah, so this first picture here is, I guess, is a fire truck that the Town of Gilbert purchased on auction from the Town of Mesa. Interesting, I didn't realize this, that these fire trucks are like $900,000 brand new. So being able to get one that is in relatively good condition and add it to the service fleet as a backup or a rotation model was a pretty big win for the Town of Gilbert. Just more pictures of the fire truck. Here's our fleet facilities. On the left is where they do the majority of the heavy equipment, such as the fire trucks and the transportation vehicles, trash trucks. The ability for the facility is to do 6 vehicles at a time. So they can have 4 indoors and then another 2 on the outside pads. Here's a picture of the inside of the bays. Shows you the working conditions. You can see that it's pretty well ventilated. They have AC, so pretty important for the maintenance crews in the summertime. Just another picture of the wall, plenty of work room there. These are just more standard vehicles that the fleet management has. These are usually the ones that are going out and just supervising, doing spot checks. Yeah, more of those. Here you can see the bays, as I was talking about earlier. You can get 4 of those big trucks in there. They actually have lifts that these trucks can drive on, and it raises them up to where the mechanics can walk underneath them and do their servicing. Just a group discussion talking about some of the ideas that the town is facing, their challenges, problems that we're working on. And here's the yard. Interesting to me was that all these trucks run on natural gas, so it's pretty clean energy. Each day they get serviced, cleaned before they go back out again. And this is one that's used for like a bulk trash pickup. So they'll have like a small tractor, if you will, and then they'll go around and they'll pick up bulk trash on the side of the communities. This was an interesting one. I still didn't understand the full story on it. Apparently it was just sitting in the parking lot, and I guess there was a leak of hydraulic fluid, and the turbo systems on these, I guess, gets around 3,000 degrees. So once that fluid hit that, it was a pretty quick ignition. Luckily, it was not next to a building or a structure. Yeah, and this is, the service place right there. You can see a guy who's out there pressure washing the vehicle, and then that's where they get fueled up each day before they go out the next morning. And this is one of the, I believe this was a Scorpion model that has a side load. We got to see inside of it, see how the driver, you notice how the driver drives on the right-hand side versus left. And that was our liaison. He showed us around. Yeah, just there's the fleet. Yeah. Oh yeah, so I'm guilty of this, so I have to own up to that. No plastic bags in your recycle bins. Apparently, when it goes to the separation center, the transfer station, they use these steel roller conveyor belts, and your plastic bags, mine included, get in those steel wheels and it ends up burning out the bearings. So they would prefer, really, if we just did not put those in the recycle bins. And here's a group picture. Everyone showed up.
Thank you, Joey. Great. So go back one slide. Yeah. So Joey showed a little bit about kind of what went on during the semester. So this project came about for a couple different reasons. So the goals that Paul and Simon and I developed at the beginning of this semester were first to determine how the town may more efficiently manage their environmental services, which is now solid waste and recycling services, that their name changed, fleet and equipment. And a big reason for needing this type of kind of new thinking or optimization is because, as you could see from the photos, they have like a decently sized fleet. But like Joey said, getting a new fire truck, that's $900,000. Or if you're buying new trash trucks or environmental services trucks, those are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. They are run really, really hard. Something that Sean, who's a supervisor we met with, talked about was that our community here in Arizona, compared to other places, because we have one, hotter weather, but also less variable weather, people are working working every single day. We don't have snow days or rain days or days where trucks get a break or the drivers get, I don't know, many days off or something like that. We drive our vehicles really hard here. And because Gilbert's a growing community, the service area keeps expanding. So Paul and Yao are really interested in figuring out how might we better manage our equipment to make sure that our routes are optimized. We're using our equipment in the right way. If we need to buy new equipment, what might that look like? So there's lots and lots of questions, which are pretty big questions that lots of different towns and cities are focusing on. So they are very interested in getting some new kind of fresh ideas about that. And then that also feeds into exploring different industry standards and just opportunities in general for this type of kind of fleet equipment maintenance, since this is never going away. This is a huge part of operations, whether in the future you decide to work in corporate or public sector or wherever you end up pursuing engineering, city things will always be happening in the background. So maintaining this equipment is really important. And the way that the project was structured for the class is that you're a very large class of about 80 students. So we had a subgroup emerge from those students that focused on this project during the semester. You don't have to scan that, it's okay. You can just escape. Maybe exit. There. Is it this one?
Yeah, so we start with our slides.
Yeah, you
Okay,
go ahead.
thank you.
Mhm.
So now let me do the each very quickly. I will begin with the group 1, 3, and I want to just show you, we actually have a broader perspective. How many of you understand we will have West Campus of ASU very soon? Some of them. Actually, the City of Gilbert is our partner. So I steal some slides from our engineering school, and they want to show that if we try to follow, for example, Los Angeles, we have this decision theater at ASU. We should really have this kind of fantastic war zone setting to ask Paul to say, hey, let's buy 100 trucks. But what we learned is that the reality is we had to deal with the actual route, the actual decision making. So that's why I want to show, before I start this project, I think I need to use high performance computing, digital twin, but we will try to learn from Zhou what we try to suggest. Having a bottom approach as opposed to here is a top to down.
So Paul, he's saying your questions were too big. Just kidding.
And also, since we are in the civil engineering, when you go out to the field, people always ask you, what do you learn from the school? And you have to really talk about the built environment, talk about the health, and then we will try to use other cities as a benchmark, not just only Gilbert, starting from here, and then later we can try to have a broader perspective. Here is another slide I want to show you. So the broader perspective, ASU try to be part of this circular economy. As you can see, they talk about all the recycle waste, automated sorting machine, and that this is what we learn from reality, and no past that allowed in the recycle bin. So I try to just show you what are the gap between our dream or long-term vision and the reality. So everything we talk about today is trying to build a bridge. And then we do spend some time, but not too much time as a consulting company. And I want to just ask Joey to talk about what do you see from this project. And the advanced slide for you.
So our project goals, as it's already been said, we were looking to work with Town of Gilbert to work on their efficiencies of their fleet management, and they're just making them better at getting that process done each day and each week, and explore standards that are throughout the industry, and then look at how we can capitalize and make those maybe even better. So why is this project important? Well, there's a couple pretty big things. Obviously is community health. not just of the people, but the environment and just the land around us. The second thing is financial stability. Over time, if you keep continuing to kind of kick this down the road, it's just going to get more and more expensive. So the faster that we get out ahead of this and start finding solutions, it's going to be better. More for the short term, but definitely in the long term. Probably the simplest one is just it's the right thing to do. All right. So an overview of our solid waste industry here is that governments and authorities have, for the past decade, really become rigorous and systematic in how they want the consequences of solid waste and how it's being managed on our society. Basically, that translates into that we're not polluting the environment or making our communities less safe or unhealthy. The process for this is pretty complex. It starts with just you and I taking our trash bags out to the corner. But then from there, there's a very complex system where it gets collected, transported, separated, then transported again, maybe treated, and then finally disposed of or used. Equipment sourcing, personnel challenges. So this is kind of drills down to where the city of Gilbert is figuring out what kind of equipment they want to use, the vendors, maintenance, parts, personnel, all that stuff right there. And it becomes an issue, especially when you're looking at buying these vehicles. Some of them have delivery times of multiple years out. So say if they placed an order today for a trash truck, they don't get it for 2 years. But the flip side of that is that you have to be able to put that vehicle through its paces. You have to be able to take it out, run it through, see can it lift up the trash, go through the communities that are in our neighborhoods and make sure that it can lift the trash cans appropriately without doing damage to structures. An adaptive life cost assessment should be built. This is basically just looking at the expense over the life of the vehicles and over the program. Top-down versus bottom-up approach. So these are the two different models that you will see basically in any business or government. Top-down basically gives you a macro view. You look at a problem, you say, I've got $100 to spend on this problem. And then as you start to drill into the problem, you can separate that out into different cost centers. You know, I got my admin, I've got my finance, I've got my operations and maintenance. The bottom up basically goes, let's start at the street level. Let's see what our expenses are there. Then we go up to the next level. Then we go up to the next level. And each layer, you're defining your costs and your expenses. The benefits of the top-down approach, managers love this one because then they get to basically dictate all the policy and the procedure and, you know, clear expectations from the people that they have. It's usually easier and more accessible to those around them because you can just roll it out rather quickly. The only difference is you end up probably with some downsides of it. You'll have the ability to overcompensate for like budget. You'll be asking for more things than you need. There's a little bit more propensity for waste. And it lacks transparency because you don't know. You're starting at the very top of the problem versus getting down at the bottom of it. The benefits of a bottom-up approach, like I said earlier, you're going to be starting at the street level. So you know how many people that you have out on your route, you know how many trucks that you have, and you see what the routes require. This gives you more transparency in your costing. You're able to like do line item approach, and it allows for the dynamic changes whenever you have seasonalities or externalities that you just didn't know about. You'll see those rather quickly. The limitations from the bottom-up approach is it's very data intensive. You're going to be almost paralysis by analysis, so to speak, because you get so much information at once. It's trying to figure out how to segregate that information and make it actually useful information. Costs can't be easily aggregated until you get a full scope of your issue.
I go to Google, I want to have a few minutes. So we do a literature review. We look at City of Phoenix. We look at all the other suburbs of Los Angeles. Many of them is going to hire a consulting company to do a top to bottom approach. Yeah. So what's your observation?
So when I looked at two research papers, one was for the city of Phoenix, and then there was actually one that did 100,000 homes in Europe and Denmark. The one in Phoenix, they just flat out, it was a little dubious how they got their numbers because they don't exactly give you their factors. They keep using this word factor, and they carry a deficit for over 4 years before they actually show any positive returns. So this top-down approach, once again, you're just kind of saying, I don't have any real idea what I have. I just know I have a really big problem. So I'm going to throw money at it. And it's not exactly the best approach, especially from a fiduciary responsibility standpoint. The one paper from Denmark actually did the bottom-up approach. So they were actually able to apply a monetary unit per tonnage ratio. So they could see exactly what things were costing. And what the one thing that kind of stood out was, I guess they have a lot of organics over there, is that's where their costs were the most, because the monetary unit per tonnage of that was way less than the solid waste. Thinking about that, how many people have grass and yard clippings? You're sending out a truck to get that stuff. It's not going to be getting as much tonnage, but yet it still has the same expense. So your expense ratio is much higher on the organics. So they were really able to identify that and then create a model to address that cost.
My question, well, a tough question for here is, in terms of the revenue, in terms of the profit, we make it even at the current stage in terms of all the users fee collect, also, and then operation costs. So that was our first question, because at City of Phoenix, at this stage, not having the break even.
Yeah, it's not there.
The second question here is, what's a typical user cost or user fee collect by household? Asking simple questions. You all hear me?
Hi, thank you for the question. Put me on the spot. Appreciate that. So our current rate that we charge per household is $19.06, I believe. Collectively, for our operations, we have to look at adjusting that so we can balance out our operations. So right now, that does not cover our costs for operations. Per household, when you break everything out, operations, contractual, and salaried and employment expenses, the cost for operations, I believe, comes out to just over $5 per household. That's what our historical trend has been. But when you take everything else into consideration, and that's $5 per visit. So times 4 visits per week, it doesn't cover all of our costs. So what was the other question you had?
The second question here is, any way you see the thing in the long run, or you reach the break-even point? Do you need to collect more users fee, or any way for us to reduce cost dramatically?
Morning, everyone. My name is Yao Fong. I'm the Assistant Public Works Director. I'm a civil engineer. I hate to admit that. So if you would have talked to me 20, 30 years ago, I wouldn't know anything about trash, solid waste. I mean, to me, I'm like, it's trash, it's rubbish, right? And then just the overall class, right? You're moving goods and services. So what I'm getting from this is that the question needs to be asked is that, are we providing good service or not? And so that's why we partner with ASU, with all the smart people in the room, and to help us, right? So one of the things that we're looking into is Joey, you brought up some good points, is that how do we tackle efficiency? How do we make it better for our organization? We can always drive change from the top level. From my level, we can say, you know what, we're going to throw $2-3 million a month, and then hopefully it works, right? Or we can have Paul's team and with ASU to help out, look at the details of it. Why are we struggling? Why are we being more efficient? One of those trash trucks, it used to cost a couple of years ago, 350,000. Now it's 550,000. When it goes down, when it breaks down, that's $500,000 of your taxpayers' money, right? And so part of this is we're trying to figure out how to build a better mousetrap by looking at our process. Are we working the vehicles too hard? Are we picking up too much tonnage? Or can we just say no, right? And we could raise the rate for our residents, but then they need justification of why they're getting good service or not. So that's where the threshold is. We're trying to figure out that threshold of when do we raise rate, okay? And the key is that we have to demonstrate to the taxpayers that they trust us, that we've done everything we can to look at efficiency and effectiveness before we ask them for rates. It's like going like when years ago, when you go to your mom and dad and saying, hey, look, I've done everything I can. I need help on a car loan, right? And so instead of going to parties, going to lunches or whatever, you're saving your money. And they're like, okay, there's value, right? And so that's where we're trying to figure out ourselves, is looking at internally how better we can kind of work it.
So now our group 2 here.
I also wanted to add to that. It also depends on what the service level that the residents are expecting from us. So at that cost of what they're paying right now, is that really worth all the services that we're providing? Do they want to cut back on any services? Because if we cut back on the service, then that's going to affect the overall cost of the operations. But that, like Mr. Yao was saying, is totally up to the residents, and this is where we're getting the input from you, and to see what our costs are, how we could do better by the residents, and prove to everyone that we're looking at everything that we can do with our current system. And then before we approach them with additional ask on any fees. So
I think now we learn more. It's not a simple yes or no.
Sorry.
Now we have group 2 here. Try to give you the analysis based on all the data we have. Go ahead. You need to introduce yourself first.
Hi, my name is Sega. Corporate Sega. Okay. My name is Segas of Tedla, and I'll be just showing you how we're able to enhance efficiency and optimization for the town of Gilbert. As you see here, it takes a lot of things to be able to do that. It's just not one simple thing you could do. The first and most important would be data analysis. So this would be looking at past data. So we've had data since 2021 until the current one. And like we use the data to be able to identify trends, patterns, and just equipment usage, write up and breakdowns that might happen within the vehicle. And the second one would be your route optimization. So this is basically applying the best techniques to minimize travel time. Like stuff we learned in class would be applying the Poisson's distribution in order to figure this out, and which will help in fuel consumption while maximizing service coverage. And another is fleet composition, which is basically assessing whether the fleet meets the town's demand. And PM, also preventative maintenance, also known as PM, which is the rate at which there is schedules for like the fleet in which maintenance happens. Another is performance matrices, which is basically monitoring the efficiency and effectiveness after applying these changes, see how it affects or like optimizes the town of Gilbert's solid waste management fleet. Another important thing is applying new technology. So that's really important in order to keep up, like there are new inventions happening every day. And it's really important to keep up with this, such as like applying sensors to your vehicles and like other new devices. So benchmarking is also important, as in you could learn from what other cities are doing, like that currently have a like modern, really successful, just learn from what they're doing right now and try to implement it within the town of Gilbert. Another is we have to consider future growth, as in like the population, it definitely keeps increasing. And with whatever change we make, we have to make accommodations for it, as well as we have to look into sustainable solutions to our problems, trying to be friendly to the environment, and also engage stakeholders. This could include just anyone involved in the project, but especially the community, or the residents that live at the town of Gilbert. Next slide. So in order to improve or like apply the best practices for improving the service and performance, like I said before, it's mostly involved in data approach, which I feel like the city of San Francisco has done it. Like it's currently considered the best in collecting data and using the data to better or like effectively maintain the maintenance practices that they have. And another important thing is to ensure that all the trucks are getting high quality maintenance, like in a scheduled way, which could be seen through the city of New York. So in order to adapt the best practices for improved service and performance, there are different case studies done. So one that stood out to me is the city of Austin when it comes to upgrading their fleet technology. So they use something called the telematic systems, in which is a technology in which they add like sensors and other devices to the trucks, which kind of looks at the engine's performance, the driver's behavior, how the cargo is doing, fuel consumption. And as soon as this is done daily, as soon as that data is collected, it is sent to a data server where the data is later analyzed by professionals to see the best way in which they could optimize their solid waste management fleet. And yeah, other is investing in staff training is really important. We have to make sure that the staff is knowledgeable about the best and current practices that's being done. You can't really be stuck in, you can't be doing it the same way you've been doing it for like the past 15 to 10 years. Okay, another is, these are the key terms for data and optimization analysis, which is the PM interval, or also known as the preventative maintenance. It's the rate at which preventative maintenance tasks are scheduled to be done for each piece of equipment, which are the trucks. PM items is the maintenance tasks that are included in each PM program. The PM program is the program that basically runs the data collection. And equipment to spare ratio is the number of spare parts you have and that are like used in equipments that are supplied there. And replacement schedule is the schedule in which its maintenance history, like every time in which something is replaced for the trucks that are there. The last one is equipment downtime, which basically is it's the time that equipment has been out of service or just not working for some time. So basically, this is the data provided by the town of Gilbert, which explains to it shows us the data that they have so far since 2021. We don't have 2020 because that was COVID and it was hard to collect that then. So this basically is the equipment and like change of fleet within the year. It describes the type of trucks, the type of maintenance, the write-ups, the breakdowns, and just like everything regarding the data analysis that you need to do. And next.
All right, so to get more into the nitty and gritty of the data, so between 2021 and 2023, the number of ASL trucks, these are the automatic side loading trucks. These are basically the mainstay of the Gilbert trash fleet. These are trucks you see in like residential areas mostly. So number of these trucks increased from 37 to 42. and then a slight decrease to 41 in 2023. And the average time of write-ups decreased from 10.45 days to 7.63 days in 2022, and has further decreased to 2023. Write-ups is basically whenever an equipment is damaged, right, the worker will like write it down and then it'll be sent back to the yard to get fixed. So basically, if the time between a write-up goes down, that's pretty bad. And then the average time between breakdowns has also decreased between 2021 and 2022, and it's remained stable in 2023. Number of PMs this preventive maintenance has increased from 240 in 2021 to 337 in 2022, and is currently at 159 in 2023. So basically, the main trends you can get from this data is that between 2021 and 2022, there's been like a massive increase in the number of breakdowns and preventive maintenance and write-ups between the vehicles, meaning that they're starting to get more worn down over time. In 2023, so far, it's stabilizing a bit, but still not good. Further add, we have comments from the city manager in 2022, basically stating that number of write-ups has increased, time between write-ups has decreased, number of breakdowns has increased, and time between breakdowns has also decreased. And these are all negative trends. This is not something we want to see. And if we look at the data largely backs them up as well. So here we just have the daily equipment requirements for all the different types of trucks. ASL, as already mentioned, is the main truck you see in residential areas. You have the mini ASL, which is basically just a smaller version of the ASL used in narrow streets. Then you got a container, which is just a flatbed truck used to delivery and repair trash. Then you got the FEL, RO, and REL, which are mostly just commercial trucks used, for businesses with large trash containers. And then you got the TRLR and the TRC-TR, which are basically just tractor trucks, which are used for like bulk trash from, I believe, industry. And then you also have the ghost trucks, which are, trucks basically have reached the end of the life cycle, can't get any more use out of them, and they're kind of just off the books because not really useful. So main observations here is that the ASL trucks are constantly utilized through the week, obviously being the mainstay of the fleet. That's kind of expected. While the other trucks that are more specialized have more varied usage patterns. And that, obviously there's more specialized trucks have lower usage during certain periods of the day as, you just need them less. And technician support seems to be concentrated more during regular work hours with fewer technicians available at the start and end of the day when most of the trucks are in the yard. So here's a chart showing like basically the mini ASL, like what times it's in the yard. The chart doesn't make it clear, but basically it's from, I believe the trucks leave at 5 a.m. and they generally want to come back around, let's start coming back around 3, and I believe they're all back in the yard by 4:30. So decrease basically means that's when all the trucks are out, and when it's highest, that's when all the trucks are in the yard. All right, so here's like a month by month snapshot of the number of PMs over the year of 2022. We wanted to see whether like, maybe it's like there's certain months where it's higher. Like a lot of us kind of expected that in the summer, obviously there might be more wear and tear with all the heat. And the data, it kind of backs it up. Obviously, if you look at June, it's the highest month. But if you look at the next two highest, it's they're both Decembers, which is kind of not what we expect. We expect the next highest would be like May or July or maybe August. So, very mixed data there. And then here we have kind of the all year summary and data observations. Here you can see like highest downtime was in November of 22 with 13.8. And then the average downtime across all months was about 9.9. Total write-ups, we had 189. Well, highest number of write-ups was in August with 189. And then the lowest number of write-ups was in January 2021 with 0 write-ups. And then the total number of write-ups from January 2021 to December 2022 was like 2,074. So, quite a lot of equipment just breaking down over the years. Highest number of breakdowns was September 2021 and November 2021 with 82. And the lowest was again January 2021 with 0. total number of breakdowns. We have like 1,000 breakdowns of just, a lot of data is breaking down. A lot of equipment's breaking down.
So I have Mustafa here. Unfortunately, he got a COVID positive today. So by working with other students here, we try to offer some overarching suggestions. So we have 5 suggestions based on our analysis. Number 1 is we see we need to have a data-driven approach. Number 2, we need to focus on the preventive maintenance and optimization. Number 3, training, communication. Number 4, we hope we can look at the standardization of your fleet. And then number 5, we'll be looking at the other cities example to look at the benchmarking. Okay. So we know that the student, when we look at your Excel spreadsheet, they are a little bit all over the place, but more we learn, it makes sense. And also we do see you have a good data inventory. So it's great in the future for our ASU students to learn from the early stage and then try to bring your level 1 data to the level 2. By level 2, what I mean is we can use some data for the further decision making. We get all your fantastic Excel spreadsheet, but we are not able to get some meaningful number, to support your decision yet. Okay. And in terms of the data analytics student, I want to just make sure you will understand the 3 different types of analytics. What Fred is trying to describe, right? Sometimes you feel, wow, he's just trying to read all the numbers. Actually, he summarized the number. So we call this as a descriptive analytics, what has happened. And then we hope by using more data, we will be able to provide predictive analytics, what could happen in the future. And then we can try to provide further suggestion, what should we do? So here, students, I know I'm still in a level 1, but you need to see what will be conducted ahead, okay? Number 2, for all these heavy duty truck equipment, we need to consider this is something we should still learn because of the breakdown, there's a preventive maintenance. We have not get the handle about the ratio. Do we need to keep more regular preventive maintenance as Tasil, try to just introduce here, or we just wait for the potential breakdown? This is something we don't know yet, and we didn't see that from the data. Okay, so there's some step for us to really have a preventive maintenance schedule. So just like in our class, we need to have a good schedule. In this schedule, we need to just make sure what are the maintenance requirements, how we can balance the maintenance requirement and the equipment availability, as mentioned by the student. And then finally, we should use some predictive maintenance technology. Okay. Number 3, the training program. I know Paul and Sean and we are busy. We still hope, by maybe having our ASU students serving as an internship, we can try to learn and then try to just not only for the city of Gilbert, we can also look at other cities to really have a communication channel. And this is something we also want to ask you is, I think you have many friends in the Valley. Do they have a common sense about the common problems? Okay. So in this way, we can develop a procedure to avoid the overlapping equipment. Okay, and then regular meeting is great. Number 4, more we learn from here is you have many types of the fleet. Some of the fleet you use actually are rented. You are renting the fleet from other companies. And we always want to say, what's the best way for you to outsourcing the equipment versus you have a long-term purchase plan. In the city of the Phoenix, they maintain their fleet. The total age is 7 years or 10 years. This is something we didn't know from you yet. And we try to look at, should we keep some standard old style trucks, or should we always have the up-to-date, the most modern trucks? So students, this is something from our transportation engineering class. The fleet composition is one important aspect for us to consider. Okay, the standardization, as you can see, more standardization will reduce the cost. reduce the complexity of equipment maintenance. Last one here is benchmarking. We want to provide the service to help you to improve your efficiency, but having other cities' performance measure will be great. Otherwise, somehow we are just coming from our own perspective. So one thing we can do here is try to understand how the other cities to maintain their maintenance and repair task, and then the overall utilization rate. So in this way, you will be able to really make City of Gilbert as an industry leader in this area. So I do have a long list of the recommendation by the end, but I want to just conclude here and then ask Paul and other our participants to comment, and the students feel free to make any comments, and then we are happy to really just show this is a joint force, to work together.
You have the long list of recommendations. You can go into that if you want to. That's totally fine. Yeah.
It's in my share mode and too much. Yeah. There's a really long. Yeah. I don't need to read it, okay, because I students are more worried about their homework number 8. So yeah, go ahead to comment and then how we go from here.
Can you leave the slide up that you had before?
Yeah, I will do so.
Thank you.
Maybe I just go to these final suggestions. Okay. Paul, do you want to just offer a few comments?
So, yeah. Thank you all. So over the past couple of years, we've been collecting data, and we didn't really previously we didn't really understand the health of our trucks. But now that we've been collecting data over the past couple of years, we're getting a better understanding of what's going on with our trucks. But that's why we're really turning to you to help us understand that data and what we could do with that data. Appreciate the suggestions, but now it's for us to act on some of those suggestions. But I want to thank you all for the work you've been doing on this.
I have a question. So whenever, like, one of the big takeaways, I think, from the field trip, as well as the students looking through the data, was that preventative maintenance is kind of a thing that's a tricky topic where you're not always sure if you should be doing it like on a very kind of regulated schedule, like if that always actually works, or if a lot of the times it's kind of more of the triage, like truck breaks down, you respond to it. How are you handling it right now, kind of based on your data? And could you see any like changes or anything moving forward, kind of having a clearer picture of how things are working?
Julia, thanks for the tough question. Real quickly, all the 3 groups, to me, it makes a lot of sense. It's what we're trying to do as an organization. Trying to put more data driven. Within our department, we're going to be hiring 4 or 5 data strategists, data analysts within each of the divisions within Public Works. And so what's cool about this is that it actually gives us hope, because it's saying that when we've asked these questions for all 3 groups, it hits bits and pieces of what we're trying to do on a bigger picture. We're not there yet. We're probably 10% there. But to me, this is a great hope for all of us, as far as we're in the right area. We're in the right direction. We just need to clean it up, and it's going to take a long time. And so for your students to look at this, it gives me a blueprint or a guide to make sure that, again, we're going through this kind of this stream, this river, right? It's actually going to be okay. And so again, the second group, all that data, it's not surprising. The student said that December, why was that up? It could be where it's holiday buying. It could be where we're using trucks because we had a major storm event, right? And so data can be useful, but you just need to interpret, right? And then also, that is one thing, but also learning to make decisions, making sure that it's simple decisions. It's that we're not feared by overanalyzing. It's like, okay, let's go, right? And to me, I'm comfortable as an engineer, believe it or not, I'm comfortable with 80%. We're good. We don't overanalyze it. We can't get 100%. We're good. So with all three groups, I think it's really good. It's a great blueprint where Paul and I will discuss and then kind of implement that as we move forward.
Okay, we have questions. Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
You might need to stand up, to say something. Yeah, because we have big class.
I know that I know that for several years now, the standard has been pick up once a week. Is there any data that would indicate that that could be delayed to like 8-9 days, depending on how full I guess the trash cans are? Is there any data on that?
That's for the class group. Yeah, that's for or you can say it.
Any question about recycling you should ask today?
So the frequency of collection for households is really regulated by the health department, because without picking up containers on a certain frequency, which is once per week, actually twice per week with the variance with the recycling, then it's once per week. That goes to mitigate the I can't think of it.
Okay, it's only 9:30 in the morning.
Vectors. Yes, I'm sorry. It goes to mitigate vectors when you pick them up at that certain frequency. So it stops the breeding of flies and other vectors and other nuisances that are out there. I'm sorry, you had more.
No, you bring up a good point. So for years, we looked at basically having people pull out their cans, right? Whether it's full or not, right? Okay. So sorry. So
He's dangerous with the microphone.
yeah, that's why they keep me away from the microphone. So you bring up a good point, and we're looking at the number of times we pick up a resident's can, but right now in Gilbert, as a service for them is that they roll out both the blue and black barrels. The problem with that is that, and I didn't understand that, is that it reduces our efficiency to pick up cans, because if you have a bunch of cans together, the truck has to stop more so, right? So as a convenience to residents, they push out both the blue and barrel cans the same day. Maybe we have it where they push it out once, the blue can first on a Monday, and then on Friday, the black cans, right? But again, it's when we change that, it's an inconvenience. And so a lot of times when you get complaints, it goes to elected officials. And so it's not easy as, oh, look, it's going to save us money. It's like, oh, it's inconvenience. I'm going to get you guys fired, right? And so that's a thing. They complain to the solid waste operator, like, what's the deal, right? And so part of that is when we make these changes for efficiency, you got to make sure that we get buy-in from the residents, right? You guys are the residents. You guys are all smart. You guys know the value of money and time. But a lot of times it's more inconvenience for people, right? And so that's a good point.
Yeah. So in the long run, it might make more sense internally to have a more strict kind of preventative maintenance schedule and do all that kind of upstream stuff first. And the residents are almost kind of the last effort to make sure that they're sort of they have access to all their services and nothing's interrupted for them.
Let's have one more question or two more questions. Okay, go ahead. And I do have one more question, is a plastic bag. How we handle plastic bag in the city level, at the city level?
Oh,
yeah.
So my question is more on the management or outside. I know Joey mentioned that there's a top down and the bottom up approach. Is there a way of blending that to get a more efficient use of the system?
So your question is, which is a better approach? I'm sorry. You're in my head already. So that's a good thing. Yes, no approach is that you can't just have one approach and that's going to be the solution. If it's a complex problem, you got to have a multitude of approach. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this information back with what Joey did, right? And then so that's what Paul and his team is doing, is that bottom up approach, is getting buy-in from his team members, the mechanics, his supervisors and everything else, right? So my approach is that I'm going to then look with the budget office and work from a policy perspective, is try to change that policy of making it work on the top level to get buy-in from them, right? Because down the road, we had to educate our policymakers so the way the value of what we're trying to change, right? We don't want to change just for the sake of changing and do it within a room, say, hey, look, we're going to make this change, but we have to get their buy-in early on. So both approaches that we have to do it simultaneously. We have to do it together, right? And it's going to take time to educate them with the information.
Is there any way to try and predict which PM items will be most likely to occur in like the next couple months in order to like order the part in advance? Is there any data to suggest that you could do that to help try and reduce downtime?
So again, these are great questions. So our fleet division just embarked on purchasing a six-figure software asset management program, right? They're implementing right now, and so we should have enough data to then understand how much do we have in stock, because a lot of times logistically throughout the world and the region is that now that we used to have 2 months in advance are taking a year and a half, right? And so we've got to figure out which parts we're burning through. Can we buy them, right? And then, stock it up so that way when we need it, then it's it costs cheaper and it's already there, right? And so it's going to take us a while to build that information up. And so, but part of that is that keeping track of when a truck goes down, what parts are going out, right? And then looking at those and really look at the detail and saying, okay, is it hoses? Is it a large mechanical items, that type of thing, and then keep it in stock. So we're working on that.
That's probably a recommendation from them is, yeah, just track everything over time. Since I know when we were on the field trip, Sean, the supervisor that we talked with, talked about how like some of the different trucks have different like hoses that are used on the hydraulic arms and how per truck that changes. And so it can be really tricky to do PM on those things if you're not sure exactly like how much one is going to be worn out versus another. So it all feeds together.
One more last question. Because I still need to cover homework number
Yeah.
7, number 8. Yes.
Yeah. So, and I can speak loud. So, for your breakdown. Sorry. When your trucks have issues and that, is that an electronics like reporting system, or is that something where they just come into the yard and they write down what is wrong? Is that something where technology, like an app on a phone, would be helpful to like issues?
So if you notice before 2020, there wasn't a lot of data that we collected. And a lot of that was because and the reason they're called write-ups is because they write up on pads of paper. After 2020, when everybody was forced to go home and use computers and we became more familiar with technology, we did find that there were some apps out there, such as Microsoft Forms and Google Forms. So we are using those for communication between our operators, our drivers, and our fleet department. So when there is an issue on their truck, a discrepancy or a breakdown or parts broken, they'll use a form from their phone and it gets directly sent to the fleet. But we implemented that back, I think in 2020, but now there's been advances which we don't have that. I guess some they could take videos now and send that so the fleet could see maybe the grippers grabbing the can. If there's a dysfunction there, they could see that in action. Or maybe they do it on a Teams call or something so they can see it out in the field where the dysfunctions happen. That we just don't have that capabilities yet with our software and technology.
I do have one last maybe observation or comment. When your truck try to collect all these recycle bins, do you always just, no matter is how empty, do you have some kind of appointment that maybe some household, they can try to just reduce the number of the times of the recycle, these recycle bin pickup or handling? Now we just take for granted. In every week, we just try to.
That's an easy solution. Tell your students not to order from Amazon. So it should be fine. No, kidding aside. So when I first got into the business and Paul's, the thought of like growing up, we always put our recycle bin, whether it was full or not, it was just a routine, right? We didn't think about it. It was like, hey, they're going to pick it up, they're going to empty it, whether it's a quarter full or not. So part of Paul's team is that he's trying to message the residents and try to unlearn that behavior where it should be the blue, especially the blue barrel. It should be only put out when it's 3/4 full, right? The black barrel, because of the trash and because of vector issues, that should be put out every week. So part of that is re-educating a lot of the Tempe residents, Gilbert residents, and everybody in the valley is if it's a quarter full, don't put it out. And so part of that is we're trying to, again, that improvement of educating the public, helping us reduce their costs. And so we're asking those questions like, why do we need people to put out, right? The blue barrels when it's not full. So those are the questions we're asking internally.
I think students, so when you finish this class, you will learn many things about smart city. The smart actually means is really the demand supply collaboration, right? So here we need to have preventive maintenance as much as possible. On the other side, we need to have all these demand strategy so that you can just not just simply put in your recycle bin every week and take for granted. If you can make, and I have this long list here, if we have the actual daily use pattern and then the truck scheduling will be possible. Otherwise, at the current stage, typical truck driver will handle about 120 bins per hour. If this is what I learned, one efficient driver can handle 200, but that was the maximum. But if we educate our citizens, we can have this one dynamic truck load, right? And then they can try to be say, hey, in this neighborhood, they do not have too much demand. We can have more dynamics and then reduce the total workload and also reduce all these maintenance needs. This is something I hope you will learn from our today's conversation. I will give the final opportunity to Paul to say something, and then I will.
I'll try to say something nice, yeah. So as we collect more data, what you just pointed out is we've always been focused on speed and efficiency and picking up more cans in less hours, but maybe the data is going to show us that's the wrong approach. Maybe we want to slow our cans down or take better care of our equipment, and that'll reduce our costs on our equipment, but maybe that's going to increase our personnel costs because they'll be out there longer because they're slow on our route, but maybe there's a balance in between there. But I love that looking at the different approaches like that, and which one is the better one to go with if that even is as we look into that type of data, if that is a scenario that would be better for the operations. But I just want to say thank you for all the work you've been doing on this. I know we've been giving you that data, and my brain's like this big and I can't understand all the stuff that we've been giving you, but I really appreciate all the work you guys have been putting on this and your recommendations. So I love the questions, love this dialogue, and thank you very much.
Thank you again. If you need some further information, I already have Julia and Allison's email, Paul's email, make the further suggestion. let me allow me just 30 seconds. So your homework number 8 is due this Saturday. I do have to record a video for you to go over all the questions. I will record another video to tell you the basic knowledge. I feel that video number 2 is insufficient, but we will touch base again this Wednesday. I may have a final review. You do have the sample solution from 2020 on the final. Okay, so just be prepared for this final week. So thank you so much, and thank you, Paul, Gil, Alison, for these
thank
great
you.
opportunities.